Heritage Brewing Company, It's a Cracker Christmas Ale.
Life is too short to be drinking shitty beer.
Welcome to another edition of Bands, Bikes and Booze Reviews. I've got one here today from the Heritage Brewing Company, which is based in Burton-on-Trent, the capital of British brewing. And this is from the brewery that is based in the museum in the National Brewery Centre, which is based in Burton-on-Trent. It's basically a museum which is dedicated to the history of brewing, particularly in Burton-on-Trent. It's the Bass Museum, they call it. Something to do with that. You know, the Bass Brewery, I think that's what it's named after anyway. And they brew quite a few beers. The most notable is the White Shield, Worthington White Shield. Now, it's called the William Worthington Brewery, which is named after William Worthington, who founded the Worthington Brewery in Burton-on-Trent, and that was in the 1700s, I think it was, late 1700s. And he started the revolution, the beer brewing revolution, or namely the phenomenon of using Burton water, which was ideally suited for pale ales. Now, that's taken on a whole new meaning of beer brewing. When you Burtonise water, you know, you're adding sulfates in. You're basically trying to get it to the naturally occurring water that they brew with in Burton-on-Trent. And it is world renowned for its qualities. And this stuff is brewed with it. Now there's a few brewers that are based up in Burton-on-Trent, but what people don't realise is how important Burton-on-Trent was to British brewing back in the 1800s. By the late 1800s, a quarter of all the British beer that was being brewed was brewed in Burton-on-Trent. Now that may not sound like a lot, because you've got, you know, 3/4 that are brewed elsewhere, but to have a quarter being brewed in such a relatively small area is no mean feat. And they've continued that tradition, and this is just one of the products of that heritage, hence the name, the Heritage Brewing Company. Now, I mentioned White Shield earlier. That was actually revived. That went out of fashion, or almost went out of fashion, and almost went extinct years ago, but it was revived, and it was brewed under contract, and the Worthington name was still, you know, brewing beer right up until the early 2000s. I'm pretty sure they're still doing Worthington beer, but the big thing about Worthington was, I remember Worthington E, which was a pale ale. Growing up as a kid, or in almost every pub you went into, you could see the big red E, and I remember the ad was a glass in the shape of an E just being filled up with pale ale. And it's, you know, it's advertising like that sort of sticks with you, and you do remember these beers. But I do remember Worthington E. And then of course Worthington started sponsoring football cups. Not that West Ham are involved in many of them, but the Worthington Cup, I do remember that being a big thing back in the early 2000s as well. And then they went a bit stupid and started doing stuff like the cream flow stuff and all that, and that's when I started losing interest in them. But as I say, this is a product of that heritage. Now the Heritage Brewing Company, they do quite a few beers. They do seasonal beers, but they also have a core range. If you look at, I think it was called Masterpiece, I went to the Kent Life hop farm, which is in Kent. I should have really taken some video footage of it, but they had this stuff for sale, and I bought this in July, so it's been sat in in the house since July, and now is as good a time as any. It's sort of early, mid-December, and it's freezing cold out there. Now, they've marked this down as a bitter, which is interesting because Christmas ales are normally called Christmas ales, winter warmers, or they're normally in the sort of old ale or strong ale type category. But this is actually classed as a bitter. They don't say it on the bottle, but they do say it's on the site. And it looks quite interesting. And the reason I picked it up is because it sounds good, and it's what I'm into when it comes to British beer. So let's stop gassing. Let's get this opened up. Right, 500ml bottle, 4.4%. On the side it says a mahogany bitter with hints of hedgerow nuts and slight smokiness. Bottle contains yeast with sediment from which the beer should be carefully decanted. So basically they're saying don't put the yeast in. I always do put the yeast in, whether that's the right thing to do or not, I don't know, but I always do it. Maybe that's something I've just picked up from German wheat beer, but I do it anyway. And yeah, it's got the address in Burton-on-Trent, and Heritage Brewing Company. Just I want to reiterate the point. It is a brewery that's been set up inside the museum, and it's got 25 barrel capacity, which doesn't sound like hardly anything at all, but it is designed to show you the workings of a brewery inside a museum, which is not bad. And these are the products. So let's see if this is any good. Now, this is a genuine, you know, when they say you're brewed in small batches, this would be brewed in small batches. You know, if it's got a 25 barrel capacity, then you're not going to get masses of the stuff being brewed. There just isn't the capacity to store it. Now, I'm very tentatively opening this because I've known beers like this before to just fizz up on me, and I really don't want it to go everywhere. I had one of them the other day. Oh, there we go. Oh, see what I mean? This is what happens. It's starting to come out, and if I'd have opened that very quickly and that pressure had have equalised too quickly, that would have just shot out. So there you go. Now it's bottle conditioned as well, so that's probably why that happened. The yeast in there would have been, caps just plain brass, the yeast in there would have been chewing on all the stuff and creating extra carbonation. What are we getting on the nose? Oh, it does smell good. Very nutty, as they say. That is one thing that really stands out. It smells almost like a brown ale. And there is that slight smokiness to it too. But there's just caramel and toffee malt. That's what's coming out on there. Oh, it smells really good. Quite smoky. The more I sort of get that up my nose, the more I'm getting that smokiness. I wonder what's doing that. Obviously roasted malt, I'd imagine. But it's just big caramel and toffee. That's the main thing on this. But it is quite nutty, and it's putting me in mind of almost like a doppelbock, you know, that sort of nutty sweetness. But there's a smokiness to it too. It smells really good. Almost like a doppelbock or brown ale type beer. There it is in the glass. Mahogany, ruby, whatever you want to call it. That is the colour. The head's quite big. Looks really interesting. Smells really interesting. Let's just hope the taste is interesting. Cheers. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's good. That is a bitter. Let's pull the hair out that's just gone in there. That is bitter on the finish. Smoky bitterness, accentuating the hops on this. I'm liking this already. That finish, that's where the smokiness is coming through, and it's really bitter. It's very much like a dark chocolate, you know, 100% cocoa, bittersweet type bitterness that's on there. Let me just get some more of it in there. Now I'm going to pour it quite gingerly because I don't want that massive head that was on it before. The carbonation on this is big, and I'm pretty sure that's to do with the bottle conditioning on it. How much is left? Not a great deal. So let's just get the whole lot in there. See, yeast and all has gone in there. What that is going to taste like, I don't know. Maybe it will alter the flavour, give it some sweetness. Let's find out. That's really good. Now that is unusual for a Christmas beer. The Christmas beers I've been trying lately, the Belgian stuff, the German stuff, some of the German stuff, but a lot of the British stuff has had like invert sugar. Some may have even had some glucose or some syrup added to it. This hasn't got anything. This is just pure bitter, nutty, dark chocolate, caramel and toffee malt. Basically everything you'd expect from a full-bodied bitter. But I keep saying it's a bitter, but it's like to me it's slightly more than a bitter. It's really full-bodied. Really drinkable too. I really like that. That is a good one. If you're not a fan of bitter beers, you're not going to like this, because that bitterness, and I think that's coming from possibly a mixture of the Challenger hop, the roasted malt that's in here. I'm pretty sure they're Challenger or Target hops, one of the two, probably Challenger. But it's just so bitter on the finish, and that to me is what makes it unique. It's not, you wouldn't mistake this for a Belgian, you wouldn't mistake it for a German type seasonal beer. This is a bitter, and it is bitter, and I have to say I am very impressed with it. I don't know whether it's got to do with the Burton water on that. I imagine that's having something to do with it as well, but it just tastes really good. The only criticism is it's quite heavily carbonated, and it's quite aggressive, that carbonation. I don't know whether you can see it in the glass, probably not, but I have to say the head retention is excellent on that. That's really good. They're the three big flavours: caramel, toffee, nutty. That's really the big flavours. Then after that you're getting that slight smokiness on the finish, the carbonation, the slightly aggressive carbonation, and to be honest, not much dark fruit. There is vague hints of it, but it's not that big. But it's nice. I really do like that. That is interesting. It's different. Certainly different from all the usual suspects when it comes to Christmas beer. I really like it. That's a good one. So what's the verdict on It's a Cracker? That is a cracker. I really like that. It's different. It's typically British. It's a bitter, but not as you know it. It's very, very full-bodied. Even at 4.4%, that is full-bodied. It's got a ton of flavour and aroma to it as well. As I say, big toffee malt, big caramel malt, quite big nuttiness on there as well. Then you're getting the the bitterness on the finish that just lasts and lasts. And all round, that is really good. I'm going to give that a 9 out of 10. I really like it. Now, I bought this in July. I don't know whether it's, I don't think it's got much to do with that, being bottle conditions, sitting around for ages. But, this could be sat on a shelf for ages and it'll be the same thing. But that is really nice. I do like it. I definitely recommend it, but it's hard to get hold of because these are brewed in small batches from a very, very small, a micro brewery in every sense of the word in Burton-on-Trent. But it's really good. And that Heritage Brewing Company, I've tried a couple of their beers. I've tried the Kentish Bitter, I think it was, or Kentish Ale. That was really nice. And they do typically British beers. That's what they do. It's a heritage brewing company, so it's celebrating the heritage of British brewing, which again I love, because someone needs to do it. Because to be honest, these craft brewers, or most of them, they're not going to do it. And this is good. So for me, that is a 9 out of 10. That is definitely recommended. And if you can get hold of it, I suggest you do. If you love your bitters, if you like that, even your brown ales as well. That's the sort of territory you're on. It's not your typical Christmas beer. There's not masses of sugar. It's not sweet. It's not strong in alcohol. It's just a good, solid British bitter. And remember, beer is working class champagne.